Greetings. For this video, I want to go back to one of the articles that I wrote on The Futurist way back in early 2017. And the reason for that is we're going to illustrate how technological progress being exponential is hitting up against some hard limits of our governmental system. In the United States, we have a system designed around mid-20th century realities, and it worked very well for a long time, and most of the rest of the world copied the American system because we were the most successful and very visibly successful, and therefore other countries copied our system. But this system is now revealing itself to be inadequate for the technologies of the modern era. It's 2021 now. We have a different set of technological and economic factors in play than we had in 1950 or 1960. So we go to the article itself. So we click on this chart over here. This is a chart of the diffusion of consumer technologies and how it gets faster and faster as time passes. This is a chart from 1903 all the way up to 2016. And you can see that the early technologies, such as the refrigerator, electric power, radio, and television, took several decades to go from 0 to 50% household adoption. But the newer technologies of today, such as the tablet, the smartphone, etc., they go from 0 to 50% in a very short time. And even this chart understates the extent of the accelerating rate of change because this is a US-only chart. We don't have a worldwide chart because nobody makes worldwide charts. However, a worldwide chart would be the more accurate and holistic type of chart to visualize this acceleration with, because it will show even a steeper rate of acceleration than was experienced in the US itself. And the second limitation of this chart is that there is insufficient recognition of the diffusion of software because there's no standalone software product in this list. Software, of course, has very high diffusibility because it is dematerialized. You don't have to ship it in a container. It doesn't have to be driven around by a truck. It is downloaded online, and it doesn't have to worry about inventories and supply chains and things like that. But nonetheless, this chart gives us an idea of the accelerating rate of change and the accelerating diffusion of consumer technologies. And I have another video dedicated entirely to this subject, which you can see in this card up here. But now going back to the main article, this leads us to something interesting that we can look at in each of our own households, and that is how many such exponentially deflating technological devices do we have? And I have a poll to that effect. And I want everyone to look at this poll and vote in the poll. And here's a list of what to include and what not to include when you tally up the number of such devices that you have in your home. Obviously include PCs, smartphones, tablets, LED TVs, game consoles, things like that. Include your car as a node as well. But exclude things like old tube TVs, film cameras, incandescent bulbs. Forget things like that. And then vote in the poll. And we can view the results of the poll. It seems like the median is between 20 to 30 devices. And this poll, remember, started in 2017. So the votes here are not recent. And I've even put forth an estimation of how many devices would have fit the description of rapid exponential price declines that were criteria for the poll, and how many would have existed in a U.S. household by decade. In the 1970s and earlier, 0. 1980s, 1 to 2. 1990s, 2 to 4. 2000s, 5 to 10. 2010s, 12 to 30. 2020s, we are expecting to have 50 to 100, and the poll is already indicative of that. And by the 2030s, we expect there to be hundreds of devices. And you can verify this yourself. Go look at any television show, such as a sitcom, based in a household, preferably a household that is not extremely wealthy, and just look at how many electronic type devices they have and see what year that episode actually aired in, and you will see substantial corroboration of these numbers in terms of how many electronic devices are not only in their home, but are also part of how they live their lives and so forth. One can look at old TV shows and see how many situations just could not exist in an era of smartphones, for example. And remember, the increase in number of nodes is despite the consolidation of nodes as well. One smartphone has consolidated 10 other devices. These used to be 10 independent devices. Now that is consolidated into one device. And I described that phenomenon in Apple products in this video up here. But despite that, the number of nodes is rising. And this, therefore, creates the paradox that we are talking about. It costs more and more money to keep upgrading these technological devices It costs too much for most people, so that is creating a technological divide in its own right, in that the technology industry is becoming a bit of a victim of its own success. So let me just read off these two paragraphs word for word. Herein lies the problem for the average household. The cost to upgrade PCs, smartphones, networking equipment, TVs, storage, and in some cases the entire car has become expensive. This can often run over $2,000 a year, and unsurprisingly, upgrades have been slowing. The technology industry is hence a victim of its own success. By releasing products that cause so much deflation and hence low nominal GDP growth and sluggish job growth, the technology industry has been constricting its own demand base. Amidst all the job loss through technological automation, the hiring of the tech industry itself is constrained if fewer people can keep buying their products. If the bottom 70 to 80% of U.S. household income brackets can no longer keep up with technological upgrades, their ability to keep up with new economic opportunities will suffer as well. This is why monetization of technological progress into a dividend is crucial, which is where the ATOM, Direct Universal Exponential Stipend, with the acronym of DUES, D-U-E-S, fits in. It is so much more than a mere basic income because it is directly indexed to the exact speed of technological progress. So that is why the money printing that we see and that I talk about each month as being just to offset technological deflation has to be converted into cash that is sent directly to people. All market forces are actually pushing the central banks of the world in this direction, but these PhD economists just cannot get their head around that because they still believe that money printing causes inflation. Therefore, they believe that quantitative easing is not permanent and will be reversed any day now. And they are just ideologically too far behind the times to even understand what has just been communicated over here. When you have cash sent directly to people, which rises or stays stagnant based on the amount of real-time technological disruption, then people have more money with which to upgrade the technological products they have in their home. Of course, that's not the only thing they will spend money on, but this paradox of it being too expensive to keep upgrading every single device in your home is definitely a real problem. It is constricting the technology economy. And as I said before, the technology industry is a victim of its own success because fewer and fewer households can just afford to keep upgrading. To make this loop more closed with the central bank sending cash directly to people in proportion to the amount of deflation, you fix that problem and the upgrade paradox goes away. Otherwise, this is something that is becoming a major societal and economic constraint for an increasingly large percentage of people. The policymakers in government are far, far, far away from being able to understand all of the factors at play, and therefore their solutions involve just tinkering around the edges or very outdated and awful ideas that take the form of socialism. Tax the rich to give money to the poor, but by taxing the rich, you only tax the upper middle class because the super rich have many ways of not paying the retail tax rate. So that causes yet other problems and increases tax complexity, which harms everyone because it is a huge drain on the productivity of the economy. Now, I wrote my ATOM publication 5.5 years ago, and a few people understand all this, but these are not the people in the policy-making decision authority positions. And the entire field of economics is woefully unequipped to even begin to grasp the intellectual sophistication of what has been presented. So you won't see any enlightened thought coming out of them. But the upgrade paradox is real, and it is increasing each year, and people are falling further and further behind because they cannot afford to keep up, even though the money that would enable all of them to keep up is in fact being printed every day. It's just not going to the right place. So this was certainly something to think about, and if you found this type of content informative, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.